With a stay-at-home declaration in place, I found myself taking some walks outside around the parking lot. I've meandered back in our little wooded area behind the church and walked over to the field next to the church as well. I love looking over at that field because it reminds me so much of our old home place back up in Anderson area. In those walks, I have talked with God. As I have walked and talked with God, I've noticed that it really is spring. There is life all around if you'll look. Trees have bloomed and now are leaving. The grass is growing and demanding a cut at least once a week. The bushes are taking off and will need trimming and pruning. There is life. I've also become aware of God speaking, not only through the life I'm observing in His creation, but in other ways, and primarily through other people. One way God has spoken truth and hope to me is in a book I'm reading. You see, a few weeks ago, Chad, Nick, and I attended a conference called Exponential. We were guests of the Southwest Indiana District, which made it possible for us to attend this large conference. It was, as one friend said, like drinking water out of a fire hose. Too much information to catch it all, but good stuff nevertheless. Ministry groups from all over were represented. Resources were unending, and nearly every major publisher of Christian material was present. I was on a particular mission to find some really good small group material for our small groups. And so I picked up a book by Kyle Idleman. Our small groups will walk through this book in our third 10-week session. I'm reading it because I'm creating discussion questions for the study. But I found out something while reading it. God was way ahead of me. In fact, God was way ahead of me on a personal level that I had no idea was coming my way. God was going to speak to me through this book. Now, I chose the book because the content looked helpful. And most importantly, there were 10 chapters. 10-week sessions, 10 chapters works well. I'm such a deep thinker. And I had no idea at the time I bought the book what I would be facing in the next few weeks and how God would use this little book to speak life into me. It's been amazing. Every new twist in the challenge I have faced seems to be addressed in the next pages I read. It's like Kyle Idleman is one step ahead of me. It's like he has the book of my life open and is one day ahead of me, writing the next few pages, which seem like an arrow hitting the target every time. God knows our todays, but He also knows our tomorrows. He knows our challenges, what we face today, and what we'll face tomorrow. He's prepared. He's prepared for us at all times, all seasons, and in all circumstances. Let me share something that I thought was insightful in Idleman's book. He writes, "One of the ways you know you're running the race that God marked out for you is that you realize you're insufficient and unqualified for what you're facing. There's no way to run it without God's power and provision. If you try to do it out of your own strength, you'll quickly grow weak. And if you try to do it out of your own confidence, you will be humbled. What you're going to do requires dependence on God and the power of the Holy Spirit." That's so true. He also reminded me that the Greek word for race is the same word we use for agony. And at my age, running is pure agony. But it's more than a reference to pain. In spiritual application, it means running the race that God lays out for you will have obstacles. He purposely plans the course that way to build us up. In this journey I'm on, the road has taken unexpected turns. In fact, some turns I had never considered possible. In this course, with a multitude of monumental obstacles, I have once again found that the best approaches are sometimes totally left to God. My response is simply to pray. Now, in this journey, I have found myself amazed at what God is doing. And I have found that I needed to ask God for forgiveness because I was amazed. I had to realize that being amazed wasn't necessarily a good thing. I hadn't expected the unexpected grace of God. I'd short-sold Him. I thought such was impossible. Wasn't it Jesus who said something about life more abundantly? Talking to God is great. hearing from God is still greater. Walking in a wooded area behind the church and seeing life is encouraging, but receiving life from God is greater. You see, I suspect God's grace was already at work concerning my future race on that warm Florida day a few weeks ago at Exponential. I wonder if he drew me to look at that book. I had picked it up a couple of times before I purchased it, but I just kept coming back to it. And I wonder if when I decided to purchase that book, if God was saying, "That's the one, son. That's the one. It's for you." So as you have more time on your hands than you want, talk and listen. He's speaking. He speaks to our todays, and he will speak to our tomorrows. He's prepared.